like to welcome you online. Thank you for following us, the Dhaka Global Dialogue. Let me introduce our speakers. On my right hand side, Mike Briers from the Technical University of Australia, who basically is bringing agricultural sector online all the way to the, let's say, fourth digital revolution, for industrial revolution. And on my left-hand side, Mr. Siad Farhad Ahmed, Managing Director of Amra Technologies, who is bringing Bangladesh online. And me, myself, I'm the chair of the board of the Boehm Institute, Warsaw-based think tank. And we would like to discuss the challenges in bringing next 5 billion people online during next decades. We believe that everybody will be online quite soon, and let's have first a question to Farhad, if I may call you so. So what are your experiences in bringing the country like Bangladesh online? 10 years ago, only 10 million people had access to internet. Now it's 80 million, half of population. So what are your experiences, what are your successes, and what are the challenges you face?
Thank you very much, Chris. I think, everything starts with a dream. And that 10 years ago, our Honorable Prime Minister had set the stage and had envisioned a digital Bangladesh. And I think that it was back in those early days from that both the public and the private sectors decided to work together in trying to eradicate a lot of the infrastructural issues that were facing a challenge towards us, financial issues, keeping in mind that the disposable income for an average Bangladeshi was considerably low. So keeping all of that in mind, we had to come out with a solution with which we could, one, convert, like you just mentioned yourself, from 10 million users to 80 million users in this short period of time. And I think one of the ways of doing that was through proper planning. So I must commend the government because the ICT division under the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications actually invited many of us from the private sector to sit on the table and said, guys, you know what, we need to do this together. And let's try to pool our resources in terms of human resources, in terms of any infrastructural resources that we may have, and let's try to make it work. And with that in mind, I think many private companies, such as my company, Amra, we actually took it upon as a challenge to roll out services to reach the masses. A simple example of how that can be done, the term internet is a very vague, can be a very vague term today in today's world. Why? Is because, let's say, I see a Facebook logo on our backdrop here. Facebook has servers, live and peering servers all over the world. But any of us as a user of Facebook, when we connect, have you ever tried to see or want to know which server you're actually connecting to? As a user, I don't think, most of us, we just want to connect to Facebook. Now, whether it's a server here in Dhaka or the one in Singapore or the one in London, it really doesn't matter as far as the user is concerned. We just want to get our, whatever, connectivity we're doing with Facebook, whether we're uploading or we're viewing something, we want to have that done. But imagine if that Facebook server was sitting here in Dhaka, and if there was a service provider like Amra who could actually manage internet traffic requests. So when anyone sitting in Dhaka or Chittagong is trying to browse Facebook, instead of putting their request on what we call the internet highway to connect to one of the Facebook servers somewhere in the world, if someone can actually direct that traffic for him or her to connect to the Facebook server sitting in Dhaka, then we're not using internet anymore. We're using what we like to call intranet, which is like local data. It's like free data. So you see, by doing that, we can actually bring the connectivity cost down substantially. And the minute we are able to do that, Chris, is that's where we can open up the internet for the people who thought they could not afford it, for the masses in Bangladesh. And I think by localization of data, I think by managing networks better and smoother, like I said, through a public-private partnership model, that's actually the way that we have been able to do that. Now, besides connectivity, besides internet, there's another big, huge challenge which you have to think about. Again, if I use the three of us as an example, we all have a digital device, a mobile phone, a laptop, or something of some sort. We don't really have much of an issue in terms of storage of data, our data, because we can store it on our multiple devices, or we all have Dropbox or Google Drive or some sort of cloud storage. Because none of us here, amongst the three of us, have to really be worried about how much we're spending on the internet every month. We probably don't even know the exact figure because it's insignificant compared to our take-home income. But let's say it's 20 euros or $20 a month. $20 for the three of us here is not something we're fussing about. But $20 for an average Bangladeshi is a lot of money, right? So again, affordability becomes a huge issue. So for them to be able to burn internet fuel to send up things to Google Drive or to a public cloud is again something very expensive, which is why Amra came out with the We Smart solution, where we have a low-cost device bundled with low-cost or free connectivity through our multiple various Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the country, and we bundled in free We Cloud. Now, We Cloud is again hosted in Bangladesh, so anyone uploading or downloading to We Cloud is again bypassing the internet and using the intranet. So it's an affordable solution again.
Great. Let me drop in here. Thank you very
Please.
much for your answer. And you mentioned public-private partnership, in which the basically Bangladesh operates the internet here. And that brings me to the question about bringing, let's say, the most offline sector, which is agriculture. So how can we bring agriculture online? Both people, in terms of people who live on the farms and off the farms, let's say, and how can we help this sector really come into the fourth industrial revolution?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, a good question. I think when you look at agriculture, it touches on so many things. It's health, nutrition, huge impact on the environment and so on. Yet on most measures, on all sectors globally, it's the least digitally mature. And so some of the challenges have been in agriculture that a lot of other industries take for granted, and that is, measurability, that data exists in the first place. And so what I could term the measurement system has never been in place. So today, things like devices, sensing devices that detect moisture in the soil, or wind direction, or humidity, or whatever the parameter is that a typical farmer has to deal with in terms of managing their crop, has never been. That sort of data has always typically been based on intuition and experience by the farmer. That data is now being made available in so many ways, and almost every week a new device has been invented that will measure something different in that environment. So the scope for measuring in the environment is dramatically changed just over the last 5 or 6 years. The other thing, I guess, is around the measurement system itself, and that's sort of the underpinning thing to the internet, is the connectivity issues, and you've mentioned that, Fahad, and the possibilities of that being resolved through through the intranet or local area networks, as opposed to sending everything to the cloud, etc., etc. So those sorts of things are starting to be solved, and of course, what this is sort of giving rise to, which is a reliable measurement system. And so in the past, these things have been big challenges. Today, they're becoming less of a challenge. We can get power to a device in a very remote area simply by having a really smart solar energy panel on it. So we can take power to it, for example. I guess that's one thing, the measurement system. The other one really is the complexity. So in agriculture, you range from aquaculture to livestock, to broad cereal crops, large cereal crops, right through to carrots and onions and horticulture, and each of those areas are quite different and have different challenges. And agriculture does not operate like a factory. So a typical factory environment has a lot of controls. You can control the temperature, you control how many people you've got in the factory, you know roughly what the demand for your product is. All those things are knowable. In agriculture, you have climate change, you have disease, you have pests, you have all these other variables. And so these are some of the reasons why the challenges that the agricultural system has faced, both in terms of the measurement system and the nature of agriculture itself, has been harder to deal with. So, but what we're seeing now with those sorts of things being overcome is that we effectively, when you look at it from a measurement, from a data perspective, what we're effectively doing is reducing uncertainty. We're taking a farmer from a situation where they're basing on intuition. They're not sure what, they're trying to watch the weather forecast and doing something, and they're making their best guess at things. So with this sort of data that's becoming available, has a huge potential to reduce uncertainty for the farmer in terms of their decision making. Data flowing is already leading to predictive analytics and artificial intelligence in predicting things like yield, production, harvest date, and those types of things. We have precision agriculture, which is highly localised, for example, weed spraying and or irrigation. So as opposed to, I need to irrigate my whole paddock, with this sort of technology, microclimate technology, either via microclimate sensing or via very granular satellite technology, you can actually pinpoint where you need to water, so you can save water. So in effect, the challenge for agriculture is to double output because of the growing population, but to halve inputs like water, like chemical and other inputs. So it has again, as I said earlier, agriculture has the biggest impact on the environment, and also is the possibility of having being a big part of the solution as well.
So great. We have like a situation when we can basically kill 3 birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Let's say. Basically, if you've save somebody from the position of uncertainty, and you have predictability, you have economic savings,
yes,
and you are more climate friendly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that brings me back to you, if I may, because if I'm not wrong, mainly the people who are online in Bangladesh, they are men and living in the city. Is it right? And how would you think that it's the next step of digital revolution in Bangladesh, and what you would expect from the public authorities to how can they help people get online, and where is the possibility to partner with public authorities?
Well, I'll just touch a little bit about where Mike had mentioned as well. Yes, being connected is one thing, but then once you're connected, then what? Collecting data. Collecting data, if it is not regulated, or if that data is not used or archived in the right way, it's like collecting garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just have tons of data which we are unable to analyze or unable to do anything with it. So analyzing that data and then putting it into or crystallizing solutions from that, like exactly what Mike talked about in terms of agriculture and all, is critical. Otherwise, we can collect data and archive it, and then what, right? So I think the next step for us here in Bangladesh, as the number of people connected is increasing, I don't necessarily, I won't agree or disagree too much with your statement about it being male dominated, because I think a lot of women, at least all the women I know, are definitely very, even in many ways better connected. But apart from that, I think the step for us is to, in terms of those who are connected, in providing services and churning out more and more services, effective services, which impact our daily lives. So like what Mike mentioned in agriculture, there are so many sectors out there in terms of our education sector. A lot of people have this inhibition. Those who've touched IT or ICT for the first time think that, oh, IT is only for software development and all that. But no, it's about creating solutions to make our lives better, and that can happen in every single domain. So what I think the expectation from the public sector would be that in each and every sector, I think the right types of applications need to be put together by the stakeholders, which is the public. Again, I think the private sector has an important role in many of those sectors. In the education sector, it would be the faculties of different schools, and yeah, their input is also, because they are the touch points between with the students. So in terms of absorption, or when you were designing online education or online learning things, I think the best input would actually come from those that are in the forefront. So it's those kind of partnerships, I think, that are necessary to bring out or roll out the right applications.
Thank you very much. I would just take this word partnership, because I know that in your project of food agility, you try to partner also not only in Australia, but also with Ethiopia. So how your Australian experiences are transferable to quite different society?
Yeah, look, I know we've got to wind up shortly, guys, but I would pick up that partnership point, and the public-private sector collaboration is so important, and we can't presume, in agriculture at least, that we know the solution. And often, in an ecosystem, you need both the science, the technology, and the policy as well angles, and that looks different in each country and in each region, much the same way as the diversity that we see in agriculture itself. And solutions that provide support to not necessarily directly to the smallholder farmer, but maybe to the vets and the advisors and the health workers that actually support those people. But at the same time, we need to realise that what's at stake here is, or what the potential here is to come back to my earlier statement about health and nutrition, food safety, food security. These are really big topics, even the environment. And so how measurement systems that I've described have the possibility, and are already being applied in this direction in other countries, to reward farmers, for example, for looking after their natural capital, looking after their soil, looking after the things. So, in other words, instead of an environment where you're trying to maximise what you get out of the environment, you're actually looking after the environment in a sustainable way. Technology, data, and online will help solve those problems.
With this optimistic note, I would like to thank you all for being with us.